This is the Wikipedia page for Frisson. Welcome to WikiListen, the podcast where we read Wikipedia pages and provide commentary. I am Victor Varnado, KSN.
And I am Rachel Teichman, LMSW.
Frisson is one of those things that happens when you feel like goosebumps is a good example.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's about it. I mean, any more details are wasted because we're about to read the Wikipedia page for it.
All right, so let's not waste those details.
Let's get this party started. It's Frisson, or Frisson. There's a bunch of pronunciations for it. French for shiver, also known as aesthetic chills or musical chills, is a psychophysiological response to rewarding auditory and or visual stimuli that often induces a pleasurable or otherwise positively balanced affective state and transient paresthesia, skin tingling or chills, sometimes along with piloerection, goosebumps, and mydriasis, pupil dilation. The sensation commonly occurs as a mildly to moderately pleasurable emotional response to music, with skin tingling, piloerection, and pupil dilation not necessarily occurring in all cases.
Does this happen to you?
All the time, just walking down the street. I'll see a sandwich and I'll be like, woo!
It happens to me, but I wouldn't always describe it as something enjoyable. It's something that just kind of happens.
All right. Are you being hunted by ghosts?
I think so. The psychological component, i.e. the pleasurable feeling, and physiological components, i.e. paresthesia, piloerection, and pupil dilation of the response are mediated by the reward system and sympathetic nervous system, respectively. The stimuli that produce this response are specific to each individual. Frisson is of short duration, lasting only a few seconds. Typical stimuli include loud passages of music and passages such as appoggiaturus and sudden modulation that violate some level of musical expectation. While Frisson is usually known for being evoked by experiences with music, the phenomenon can additionally be triggered with poetry, videos, beauty in nature or art, or even by eloquent speeches. During a Frisson, a sensation of chills or tingling is felt on the skin of the lower back, shoulders, neck, and or arms. The sensation of chills is sometimes experienced as a series of waves moving up the back in rapid succession and commonly described as shivers up the spine. Hair follicles may also undergo piloerection.
It has been shown that some experiencing musical frisson report reduced excitement when under administration of naloxone, an opioid receptor antagonist, suggesting musical frisson gives rise to endogenous opioid peptides. Similar to other pleasurable experiences, frisson may be enhanced by the amplitude of the music and the temperature of the environment. Cool listening rooms and cinemas may enhance the experience.
Causes: violations of musical expectancy. Further information: melodic expectation. Rhythmic, dynamic, harmonic, and or melodic violations of a person's explicit or implicit expectations are associated with musical frisson as a prerequisite. Loud, very high or low frequency, or quickly varying sounds, unexpected harmonies, moments of modulation, melodic appoggiaturus, has been shown to arouse the autonomic nervous system, ANS. Activation of the ANS has a consistently strong correlation with frisson, as one study showed that an opioid antagonist could block frisson from music. That's really interesting. Leonard Meyer, a prominent philosopher of music, wrote in his text, Emotion and Meaning in Music, that music's ability to evoke emotion in the listener stems from its ability to meet and break expectations.
Well, that's interesting. You could write songs specifically to cause frisson if you knew what you're doing.
Yeah.
I don't. Emotional contagion. Frisson can also be a product of emotional contagion. Within the context of music, emotional contagion involves various musical devices such as tonality, rhythm, and lyrics that imply emotion, triggering similar emotions in the listener. In The Emotional Power of Music, multidisciplinary perspectives on musical arousal, expression, and social control, Stephen Davies suggests that music is expressive because we experience it as presenting the kind of carriage, gait, or demeanor that can be symptomatic of states such as happiness, sadness, anger, sassy sexuality, and so on.
Environment and social context. Frisson can also be amplified by one's environment and by the social context that the piece has been listened to. For example, if one listens to a movie soundtrack in a cinema, the overall volume and the film's story will provide intentional context, likely creating deeper emotional feelings of Frisson in the listener. The culture and nationality of both the piece and the composer will affect the levels of Frisson felt, or if Frisson is even felt at all. If one is very familiar with music built on established Western musical traditions, deviations will violate the listener's expectations. If one is from a non-Western culture, deviations from Western musical tradition may prove to have no effect on the listener. Jeanette Bicknell, writing for the Journal of Consciousness Studies, wrote, quote, "Different musical cultures are based upon different patterns of tonal and rhythmic organization. These patterns of musical structure and meaning are social constructions that evolved through human musical practice."
Intention. Frisson may be stimulated through conscious intervention and cultivated as a personal development exercise. Through stimulation, Frisson can give the cultivator a sense of hyper-awareness through the taxation of energy. Though the introspection of guided Frisson passage of an individual is often misunderstood, Frisson can become more than a meditative practice by conditioning the body for unfettered internal movement of stimulated areas. I don't know what that means, but I like it. As it is an exercise and naturally can lead to exhaustion, intentional stimulation of Frisson is normally self-priming, and time builds the most solid foundations for more diverse use. Building an understanding of personal energy expense through Frisson and the influence of intentions over physical responses, a greater understanding of others often arises to become empathy through due process and clarity of action.
Citation needed. Neural substrates. Further information, reward system, and sympathetic nervous system. Experimental studies have also shown that tingling during Frisson is accompanied by increased electrodermal activity, skin conductance, which is mediated via the activation of the sympathetic nervous system, and that the intensity of tingling is positively correlated with the magnitude of sympathetic activation. Frisson is also associated with piloerection in large pupil diameter and physiological arousal, all of which are mediated by activation of the sympathetic nervous system.
Neuroimagining studies have found that the intensity of tingling is positively correlated with the magnitude of brain activity in specific regions of the reward system, including the nucleus accumbens, orbital frontal cortex, and insular cortex. All three of these brain structures are known to contain a hedonic hotspot, a region of the brain that is responsible for producing pleasure cognition. Since music-induced euphoria can occur without the sensation of tingling or piloerection, the authors of one review hypothesize that the emotional response to music during a Frisson evokes a sympathetic response that is experienced as a tingling sensation. Wow. This is one of those pages where I'm like reading it, and then sometimes I'm just like, are they making this up?
What makes you think they're making it up?
No, it's just like sometimes some of the descriptions, I'm just really getting lost in them. It's kind of just like a jam of phonetic poetry at some points.
It's very neural.
It's giving me a little Frisson. You know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying. Get all that Frisson.
This has been the Wikipedia page for Frisson.
Thanks for listening to WikiListen. You can find us at wikilisten.com and on all social media at WikiListen, except for Twitter, which is at wiki_listen.
If you'd like us to read a specific page, please let us know.